Welcome, welcome. This is our Elevated Frequency podcast, and I'm here with my lovely co-founder, Lisa Kirby, and I'm Shannon Morse. And today we're going to be diving into a newer topic for us, which is meditation and how it has an impact on our goals of health, weight loss, and body composition change. So, of course, I'm excited to talk about this, and I'm always excited to be with you in this space, getting to chat about all the things. It's like we get to have a conversation that's just for us, which is always fun.
Yes.
So,
Business talk for a hot minute.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yes.
So, Lise, how shall we start today?
Well, one of the things I'm always thinking about when we weave into our conversations and how we communicate with potential members and clients is like, why are we even talking about some of these concepts outside of nutrition and training? Predominantly we're teaching people how to strength train properly and build muscle mass and get their metabolism revved up. And ultimately, you and I have always had this deeper, emotional, spiritual connection and our own kind of exploration with this spiritual side of holistic health as well.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like self-development, emotional regulation, all the things, and kind of unpacking, doing some deeper shadow work, because underneath it all, I think what really drew us together is this sense that we don't live in these silos, that all of these bodies, if you will, are all integrated and interconnected. And when we built our program and our company out, we kept adding the layers of support for not just your physical health, but your mental health, your emotional health. We started to see these patterns of like, wow, what you eat impacts how you feel and your ability to regulate your emotions. And then your ability to regulate your emotions impacts how you eat. Right? So it goes both ways with all of these layers. And so what has been so beautiful to reflect on, and where we're kind of coming full circle, is like we started our company in 2019 officially, right before the pandemic. And in 2020, everyone had loads of time available. A lot of people were on Zoom all day, and we actually had all of these pillars integrated into our community with live meditation and mindset, emotional support calls. And it's such a gift right now that we're able to weave that back in now in the place that we're at. So I would love to hear more, because we are launching this new 6-week offer, Awaken Your Meditation, led by you, which I've said over and over, I'm like, I am a meditation snob now, and I really only enjoy like a handful of guided meditations by certain practitioners, and you are at the top of my list, Shannon.
Oh,
I find like my mind wanders the least when you're leading a meditation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a fun feedback.
I would love to just know more about what, you've always had some sort of relationship to spirit and these kind of practices of spiritual health that you've always had. But really, I'd love to hear more. And I know our listeners would love to hear more specifically about meditation, what it's done for you, the benefits that you see in kind of all these, from emotional to physical bodies and elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel so honored that I'm on one of your top picks for guided meditations. So meditation, or like just the practice of present awareness, I was thinking about it this morning, has been a part of my life and my upbringing for a long time. And perhaps I didn't really know what it meant to meditate. I think when I started, I was like, it just means that you're supposed to sit there. Like you're supposed to sit there and not think about anything. And that's impossible. In case anyone didn't know, that's not happening.
Yeah.
So I think once I started to, like in 2020, once we were bringing these meditation practices in, and we had a really early morning meditation practice, I feel like it was 6 a.m.
Yes.
And what was interesting then, I had this time to be applying and researching all of these different types of meditations. There's so many different types of meditations. There's meditation for protecting your energy. There's meditation for um, connecting to mother and father sky and, mother earth. There's meditations for going to sleep, for, releasing things. And all of those felt very interesting. And I got a lot out of it. I got a lot of experience and understanding that we have so many options. But it wasn't really until I had this experience in 2021 that was a plant medicine journey that really was like probably one of the strongest substances on the planet, that I realized that there was so much more capacity inside of me that I had ever been told or that I had ever experienced. And I had to integrate what that felt like over the course of about 9 months, which really felt like a rebirth. And during that time, I found Tantra Kriya yoga or meditation.
When you say capacity, do you mean like your sense of inner world, your power? Like what does that word mean to you?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Capacity in the way that I no longer felt like things were happening to me. I felt like I was the one that was really building my life as a design based on my thoughts. And that's a powerful realization.
Yes.
So when I was in that state, then I was less interested in what was happening and what I was reading or hearing on the news. And what I was finding is that when I would go into some of these meditative states, that I would start to get my own answers that were extremely clear, that were sometimes clairvoyant, like sometimes psychic, and were allowing me to have a better understanding of how to regulate some of my emotions and some of the stories that I had told myself, right? Some of the old beliefs. And that would be, coming into a new type of understanding of capacity. And what was really cool about what I was discovering with Tantra Kriya, so it's part of the lineage of Paramahansa Yogananda, this one particularly. And it is a science, and this is what I love about it. And this is what I feel like Lisa and I haven't gone down the rabbit hole with this together yet, which I'm so excited for her to experience this, because it is a science and it is an exact sequencing. So just like you would track macronutrients, you also do the same thing with how you move through the layers of awareness.
Oh, wow.
So we have our physical body awareness, which is one of those layers. They're called koshas. So that physical embodiment is usually what we're in all the time, right? Like the green door, like we are all this layer of our experience.
Yeah.
And yet there's also a mental layer. And if we're not really present with what that mental layer is doing, it's likely driving on autopilot and affecting everything else that's happening in our body. And then we have our emotional layer. And then we have our vital energy layer, which is like our pranic layer, which is the layer that we're interacting with our environment, right? Our breath, sunlight, nature, like all of these things are a part of that layer. And so I was diving more into it, and then experiencing the meditation, I was able to more easily play within the layers. And so that shows up in life, like when I'm having especially like a harder time with something, like I'm getting triggered, I will be able to notice my breath. I will be able to notice where I'm feeling it in my body. I will be able to understand the thought that is associated with the feeling, and go through this almost like checklist of, oh, okay, all of these things are happening simultaneously, and I can now be more presently aware with all of them to understand what's actually here in reality and what's not. And this part of it is, I feel, so deeply important for the individuals that we work with, and why I want to bring it to our practice. First of all, I don't think that most people will relate meditation with body composition change.
Right. Yeah.
However, when we go through these really deep transformative processes with clients and they're going through the initial understanding of learning nutrition science, right? Learning nutrition science is very logical. It's not so much about you're not really connected to the emotional impact of it. You're not really going like, well, where do I feel this in my body? We lead you there and we invite you into that space. But it's not until people realize, which is usually around week 6, sometimes earlier, where they know that they have like figured out the science. They figured out, okay, this is the balance that I'm looking for. I'm going to try to do this. And all of a sudden, their mind, their emotional capacity just puts a stop and self-sabotages.
Yes.
And it can show up like so many things, but those, whatever that nature of the thing is usually an unconscious trauma loop or behavior pattern or belief that's there. And if we never take the time to stop and go within ourselves, we will always be looking externally for the answer.
Yes.
But that's not where the answers exist.
We need to say that again and then put it on a t-shirt, because if I could sum up just the energy of at least the last couple months, it's that we have this unique perspective of looking at, a larger sample size, if you will, of people coming to us who need support. And the theme, I don't know, this is what I see over and over and over. It's like, I did this and I did that, and I'm doing this and I'm doing this cleanse and this detox, and I'm on 50 supplements and and everything is outside. And what you so beautifully do, Shan, is like, well, how does that feel? It's like question number 1.
Yeah.
How is that, how does that feel on the inside?
Yeah.
That is so, so powerful. And it's what you're alluding to, that shift where you notice the capacity. It's almost like it can be empowering, but it's also like, wow, if I'm so aware of these layers and conditioning and these different bodies, you're responsible and you have impact on creating your reality. It's like, on one hand, it's like, yes, this is awesome. And the other hand is like, oh, I'm responsible, and really looking at like what's coming up, especially these patterns and things we see over and over of like, wow, like where am I getting in my own way?
Yes.
Instead of, again, looking externally, blaming external factors, always looking for an external solution. I mean, what you're saying here is like, this is a paradigm shift.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was in meditation this morning, and I was just in that space because this is another cool thing. I love it. It's just like with nutrition. It's just like training. When you do it over and over and over again, and you have a consistent practice, whatever that thing is, you are just diving those grooves in deeper and deeper and deeper. And so what it has allowed for me now, and you see me do this, we'll be making a business decision and I will drop in, and what will it take me, like 2 seconds?
Yeah.
To be like, yeah, let's do that.
Yes.
And then, but I've now built those grooves where I can align myself into that space of deeper knowing within my own being.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not saying that this was easy. I would actually say that moving through, like doing the physical thing, I think for everyone, it might be a little bit different, right? Like your physical practice for some might be really challenging, especially if they've dedicated their lives to more of a mental thing. Like for a scientist, perhaps, or someone who's very cerebral, they may not go into body as easily, right?
Yeah.
You might have a dancer that may not go into mind as easily. But when we're kind of playing through all of these different layers and different capacities that we have, I find that with the layer of this meditation that really does feel like it brings everything together, it really helps the neural pathways be able to connect to your physicality, connect to your emotions, connect to your mental state, connect to your senses, connect to your breath.
Mm.
The breath conversation is a whole class.
Yes, yes.
Being able to use our breath, just a simple thing that I discovered going through some of this training for pranayama. And I really feel almost like silly going like, I didn't know this, but I didn't know it, was the incredible impact of breathing through your nose versus your mouth. I had no idea. Thank goodness I don't have like any sort of sinus issues, because the benefit of breathing through our nose on fat loss
I know.
alone
Yeah.
is insane. And also balancing the left and right hemisphere of your brain with different things, massaging your lungs and your heart, like through different types of breathing. Also, your spine flexibility is based on how deeply you can breathe. There's just like, it just like the rabbit hole keeps unfolding, you know what I mean? So bringing that into this is in direct alignment with the breath that we use in our strength training.
It's so cool.
It's like, and I love the cross currents of everything so much, because it really points and just confirms what you and I have already believed in our own practices, is that we are such dynamic beings.
Yes.
We have all of the layers and all of them matter, and we can't expect to have full well-being if we're compartmentalizing. You know, and we can't expect to have full well-being if we are outsourcing everything outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that is really my most favorite thing about meditation specifically, is that it has nothing to do with what's outside of you.
Yes.
Like, it's literally, can you be with you and see what shows up for you? See what is inside of you. See what's waiting, like what has been waiting so long for you to witness it.
And I'm sure, like, I'm thinking of, like, now that sounds so lovely. It sounds luxurious.
Mm,
If if you had asked me that 6 years ago, I would be like, contraction,
yeah,
terrified. What do
yeah.
you mean? What do you mean slow down and take a breath? I'm sorry,
Mhm,
what?
mhm.
And then those are the moments where, like, if you don't feel like that's possible for you, that is even more of a reason. I don't know, whatever I heard that saying
Mhm.
a while ago of like, but I don't have 15 minutes to meditate. And then the wise response from the Buddha or the monk was like, well, you need to meditate an hour a day.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
If you can't even fathom sitting
Mhm.
with yourself for a hot minute and
Yes.
not having distractions, what does that mean, you know?
I actually want to break that thing down that you just said, because it's really, thank you for bringing that up, because what it points to for me, or now what I understand about that, is that when our nervous system is so dysregulated, it requires so much more time to regulate.
Yes.
So if for myself, if I can regulate my nervous system between 5 and 10 minutes because I've done that initial work, then I don't need an hour. But if
Mm.
you haven't done that initial work, it may take you an hour.
So, for example, if someone's in that kind of high octane, maybe even chronic stress state where just the thought of
Mm.
in a couple minute meditation is overwhelming,
Mhm.
what do you recommend? Like, is that too big of a jump for them to try meditation, or is part
Mhm.
of meditation like the wavering in your focus of like kind of going in and out of my to-do list and then I'm back to, kind of trying to find that blank space?
Yeah. So I love that question. That's such a practical question, um, which is wonderful. I mean, I think it's always going to be, it depends. That's my
Yeah.
personal opinion.
Yeah.
If you are drawn to some of the benefits, that come over time.
Yeah.
Over time, it's like anything. You're not going to be like, I meditated today. I feel fantastic. Some days you might feel like that. Some days you might be fucking angry.
Right.
And that's just what's there, and that gets to be okay.
Yeah.
But I would say just with anyone that's in that state where they have never done it, and they also don't think that they can, that they're like, I'm not someone who can meditate. That's way too much for me right now. Just taking 3 deep breaths, like in through your nose and out through your mouth, can be enough of a shift for your nervous system to kind of reset.
Yes.
The type of, so what you just shared about, like, your to-do list coming in and all that kind of stuff, for my experience, let it. Like, it's there. It's there. It's just doing its thing. It's not about fixing whatever that is. It's not about fixing, oh, I shouldn't be thinking about my list right now. I should be meditating. Like, that's not what this is
Yeah.
at all. It's like, you have a list that's going through, let it. Interesting. What's on that?
Yeah.
So it's like a little bit about making space, because then when you allow that space to be there, and again, with the practices of Tantra Kriya, we're basically taking you through the layers of awareness. So we go through the layers of our physical awareness, the sensations that we're feeling in the body. We go through the layers of our vital energy, which is going to be our breath, right? We go through the awareness of our mental energy. So working on visualizations. So it's literally systemized. So then you're arriving at this place at the end for sometimes only 2 minutes as you get started. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, what's this space? Like, I haven't been here before. There's space here. Like, wow, huh, okay. And then all of a sudden there becomes more access in that space. So that's one of the things that I think, there's so many different types of meditation. This practice specifically is a technology and a system that builds onto itself. So it's through that daily repetition that more and more and more and more and more is revealed to you. So the capacity gets bigger and bigger as you go.
I love that so much because I've explored various types of meditation, and everything kind of is, it's very similar to like workouts. Like, oh, I'm just going to browse around on YouTube or the Calm app, and found myself so frustrated so many times with like even some guided meditation where I'm just sitting there like, this is a waste of my time. Like I'm just sitting here and all these thoughts are coming in, and it wasn't enough structure for me.
Mm.
And then between your meditations and this one other one I found online, he does guided visualization, and he says it's hypnosis.
Yeah.
Like, whatever, that's cool.
Yeah.
But then by the time it's like 30 minutes of guidance, and then after that, then I'm like, it's almost like, I don't know where he led me or where you led me, but you're in that more kind of empty space where like all the stuff that needed to come out in the inner world, it's just like almost like journal dumping in a way.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, and then I almost like check out. And when I come out of it, I'm like, where did I go? I don't even know what happened.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I have competition. Okay. No, I'm just kidding.
I have my masculine meditative voice,
Yeah.
and then the feminine.
Yeah, I think it's nice to have both for sure.
Yeah.
For different mood. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I love that. It's definitely has a air of that feeling for sure of hypnosis. One of the trainings that I did was yoga nidra, which is essentially sleep meditation. And all it is you're essentially moving through the entire body with awareness, and then you're essentially moving into like a trance or hypnotic state in that experience. And it just allows for complete relaxation. And it's so infrequently that we allow ourselves complete relaxation.
Yeah.
And then this goes into some of the stuff that you and I are kind of getting into now. So when we are able to move into the parasympathetic nervous system, so this is a big part of it. Like, this is a big part of what you and I have been discussing so much, because if we have individuals who are stuck in their sympathetic nervous system and they are releasing cortisol chronically, especially for our females and our males, we see that show up in them not being able to lose weight.
Yes.
We see it in inflammation. We see it in them storing it. And now, as we're getting to know more and more, we'll store that weight in the areas that are stuck in our emotional body. So if we have anger, grief, etc., we'll actually be able to see where that's storing in people's physical body, right? Where they're holding.
Yeah.
And we have like these different pains that will show up in the body. And what's so wild is that there was a study that was cited in the somatic emotional release training that I'm currently doing about basically when we have any sort of acute traumatic response, that our brain releases cortisol and adrenaline into the tissue.
Yes.
Like into the fascia.
Yes.
And if we don't resolve that, and if we don't move it, and if we don't regulate it, it gets stuck.
Yes.
And so when we are able to be flexible with our nervous system, and this is one of the reasons why we're bringing the combination of this meditative practice and the nervous system regulation workshop that we have coming up in November, in partnership with Michelle Bologna. Those two things are like operating together, and so the meditation in terms of body composition, which again is so cool. It's like, it's all connected, you guys. If we can regulate our nervous system, if we can regulate, that regulates our cortisol release. If we regulate our cortisol, that regulates our blood sugar levels. If we regulate both of those things, that regulates our hormones. If we balance out our hormones, we are more regulated throughout the day. We have less symptoms of perimenopause or menopause. It's like everything is just compounding on itself.
Yes.
And I know you know what I mean. Yeah.
It's almost, and it's one of those moments where it's like, oh my gosh, where do you even start? But it's all important because it's the two-way street. So it's like what you eat impacts, your mood and how you feel and your nervous system regulation and vice versa. So it's like, it's all important.
Yes.
And it's kind of like jumping in and diving deeper where and when you need it. So if you've got the food thing down, like for our members who are 6 weeks in, like, okay, now if you still have a block or you're still stuck somewhere, now it's time to look deeper. I mean, that is, if I could sum it up, like when we look at our clients who see the easiest change, they are the ones who they have no expectations, no attachments. They've done a lot of like shadow work and inner work. They're very aware. And we look at them and it's just like things are just falling off. And their physical transformation is almost jaw-dropping. It's shocking.
Yeah.
It's almost like they just needed the right nutrition information and it just flows.
Yes.
And I really do feel like what we're seeing now is the people who are having a harder time moving things physically have some sort of deep rooted, maybe it's negative self-talk or self-devaluation that literally, like you're saying, holds in our tissue.
Yeah.
I was just going through a module today in my quantum biology certification, and it was all about water holding memory and how it's tied into our fascia and how that tightness is what makes us in a state of dis-ease, and we don't have that flow. We don't have the electron flow. We don't have the hormone flow. Our heart can't get through. And then you have these knots, literally, that will keep showing up over and over. And it's not going to be healed by massage. You might be able to move that energy and loosen that tissue, but it's going to go right back to getting hard again unless you are doing some of this work and the practices to like look under deeper of like what is storing there? Like, what is this actually about?
Yes, I love that we are doing this at the same time. For those of you, when we say we're doing this, so Lisa is in a quantum biology certification program right now. I'm in a somatic emotional release certification program right now. So we are operating in these two different worlds, but they are like the same. They're pointing to the same thing, right? They're just coming at it from different angles, which is so beautiful. To that point, Lise, and I'll just share this because it's so fascinating, and I've shared it before with you, But in some of the somatic emotional work that I've had and people are practicing on me, I've noticed the pathway of pain in my lower back and how it basically shows up in the same way every time.
Wow.
And it shows up as a holding of energy. Like that's like a big word, just holding energy here.
Yep.
And then what's happened over time through understanding what is associated with that, like a memory, a person, an emotion, as I've started to unveil the full layers of what's there, the mental layer, the emotional layer, the physical layer of what is actually being held in that area of my body. Once I was able to fully witness it, it is gone.
I mean,
And it's not even gone where it was like I woke up and I was like, oh my God, it's not there. Like I had a session where there was a release, and then the next day I was like, that doesn't exist anymore.
it's so cool.
So cool. And I like, even my brain is like, are we sure?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
let's just wait. But I'm like, even right here, I'm like, it's just not there.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's so very cool. And so I do want to make sure that we kind of talk about the structure of this class that's coming, if you guys are interested in it specifically, because what we did is that in the summer, like we're trialing different classes. We're trialing different classes for you guys to really feel what benefits me. What do I want to be lit up by? And we'll then further integrate that into some of our offerings in the next year. So that's what we're doing with this Tantra Kriya class. We can see the benefit of it, but if it's so new for you, you may not be able to understand what it really means. So I'm going to kind of lay out the structure. So it's a 6-week experience. The meditation practice is on Fridays, and it's an hour and 15 minutes. That's not the whole meditation. We're not meditating for an hour and 15 minutes. We at the Green Door Life love to connect you guys with the why. We love to connect you guys with the science. We love to help your brain understand what this is doing and how it's serving you. So the first like 30 minutes are helping you to understand the science behind this type of meditation practice. What's happening with the breath, how nitrous oxide is moving into your body, like, all like how it's circulating, the blood flow, what it's doing for you, nervous system strategies, like all of these things. And then we go into a guided meditation, and then you have a recording for the next 6-7 days until our next class, where you get to do that every single day on your own. It's a recording, you do that. And then we have another class that we do that same model, and we build off of the last week.
Oh,
so
cool.
At the end of the 6 weeks, you will have like the first week's meditation is like maybe 10 minutes, right? So you just build slowly. And then the next week, we're going to add more to that. We're going to move into different layers of the koshas or energy bodies. And then we keep doing that and adding more and more, which gives you more tools to use, right? And also slowly opens up the layers, because we don't really want to push things, just like we wouldn't take a strength training session and go like, here's a barbell, have at it.
Yeah. Even just like, I can imagine the practical and spiritual benefits of it, but just mentally it feels so much more doable. Like, oh, we're going to start with, a little less intense or less length and then build up to it over time. Because it really does become a muscle, especially if you end up doing it daily. I can only imagine that when the times I've been meditating regularly, I'm like, every time you do it, you're like, whoa, it's so easy to drop in, versus the first few times you're kind of like,
yes,
this old thing again,
You're like, hello, mind.
I think my favorite part about this, Shan, is you're offering this in with everything we do. I find I'm like, I need accountability. I definitely have that drive to do things on my own in maybe more of like a learning space. Like I'm going to watch a video and take a quiz, or I don't know if it's something like very logical, rational. I like learning in my own way, but for something like this, where it's like application, I love that you have created this space to allow someone to build the consistency and build the habit. Like that's where I need this literally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do too.
Yeah.
I love that. And especially for this, you're helping me to remember, I forgot to mention something. So part of the meditation practice is a journal prompt at the end to essentially help you, because a lot is uncovered or a lot is revealed in the meditative space. And so that journaling goes, what did you notice mentally? What did you notice physically? What did you notice creatively? Like,
Mm.
what kind of creative insights did you get? Because there's been so many times where all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I can do this in my meditative practice. And I figured out something that would be directly applicable to something that we're doing in the green door.
That's
Right.
amazing. Yep.
So the journaling is so important for that self-reflection, to remember how much is revealed in different ways. And then to see that compounding over a period of time as well, right? Because in the beginning, you may be like, well, I don't know what I noticed. And then that muscle starts to get stronger, the muscle of awareness. And then you're like, well, actually, there was like this scene that's showed up. And what is that scene? And then you may arrive at that scene later that day.
Yeah.
So there's just so much that can be revealed there. And it's also a space where you can share like the things that are coming up for you and like questions that you might have. Because what I noticed in my own training was that I would just be kind of like filling out the form, saying what I noticed. And then the reflection that I got from my teacher was sharing what that actually was showing me. It's almost like the symptoms of our body.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. And so I would have certain experiences, like visualizations or sensations in the body, or when maybe my mind would go unconscious in a certain part of the meditation, and she would reflect back to me what that meant.
Wow. Can you give like one example? I know we're coming up on time.
No, it's so the unconscious thing is a really common one. Like
Yeah.
essentially going into a different layer of our koshas, right? So at some points, I would just, especially in the beginning of my journey, I would just like I would be gone. I wouldn't even be present like at all. And then all of a sudden I would hear her voice going, okay, like we're going to like coming back to your breath, et cetera, et cetera. And I would just be like, I was not like, nobody was home during this period of time.
Right.
And she was pointing to that's likely that we're hitting emotional energetic blocks in that state. And so our body isn't necessarily ready to fully be there. And so you don't make it wrong. You don't make it right. You just move on into that next session and stay with it.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Fascinating. Another moment, there's a visualization practice that's actually in week 6. And I don't want to give it away yet because, but in that visualization practice, what was coming up for me was a specific color. And she shared that color was prana. She was like, that color is the prana that's moving through your body.
Wow.
And I was experiencing it like moving through my body in a certain way. And I would have not known that.
That's very cool.
Very cool. So that's what I mean. It's like, there's so much that can be revealed. And when you do have this space, just like with coaching, with nutrition, when we're able to reflect back to someone, oh, your energy levels are dropping in the afternoon. I wonder why. Let's take a look.
Yes.
The same thing happens in the meditative space with our spiritual development and the development of the different layers of our awareness.
I love it. Just feels very guided and supported instead of just like, there's like with anything we do, oh my goodness, there's like massive thought and intention,
Yes,
structure behind it. And it's like it really is the masculine and the feminine, where you have that structure, you have the container,
yes,
you have the consistency, the building, and then it allows for this free flow and, more of that, if you will, feminine energy, where it's like, ooh, what's like flowing, what's showing up here and like what's coming out. But you can't,
yes.
if you don't have like a container and a structure and something like systematized to see what it is, it just feels like chaos to me,
Right. You're going through something without like any sort of bumper lanes.
Right.
Yeah. And there's no model or directive of what it is that you're actually experiencing. And there might be a lot of value in some things that feel very subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Very cool.
I'm very excited. Yeah. And so if you guys are interested, we'll drop the link to it in this experience. Also, I wanted to share too, it would be amazing if people can be there live, but you don't have to. This is definitely a thing where you will get the recording of the sessions. You'll get the recordings of the meditation. You'll have access to like ask questions and things like that, or share if there's something coming up, to the journaling prompts and all that kind of stuff during that 6 weeks. Yeah, but you don't have to be there live, because we understand people have jobs and they may not be able to make the time.
Yes, I love that. It feels just very, very nourishing, timely, necessary right now, with the kind of energy that is bouncing around.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
We're so excited to be able to offer it to you guys. And Lise, I'm so excited. I hope you can make it too.
I'm looking forward to it. It's blocked off on my calendar.
Okay, wonderful. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really love sharing these kind of new techniques with you. So this is one of the newer techniques that we will be introducing over the next few months, and can't wait to see what everyone thinks about it. So thanks, Lise. This was a pleasure.
Yeah, this was lovely. Thank you.
All right, have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.